Russia used to be known as the gas station of the world. And that's because, realistically speaking, the only thing that Russia really was exporting besides like fertilizer, uranium, and things like that was fuel. They were able to pump down very deeply across its vast land, pull this oil from the earth, refine this stuff, and then sell jet fuel, diesel, gasoline to countries from all around the world. And when Vladimir Putin started his war now over 4 years ago, I don't think he ever imagined the day where he would have to turn to his allies and say, hey guys, do you mind if we buy some of your gasoline? Because according to a new Reuters article, that's exactly what's happening here. In case you don't know, over the past now 5 months, Ukrainian forces have been refining how they strike Russian long-range targets. I know the play on words there. And in just the past 3 months, Ukrainians have been striking every single refinery they can find between the front lines and about 1,300 kilometers from the front lines. That's how good Ukrainian technology has gotten, that these drones can go extremely long distances. And add in the fact that Ukraine now has real-time satellite data and images, they're able to kind of indicate if there's an air defense system that had been moved, and now they can go somewhere and then strike it and then find out within about 5 minutes whether or not they actually hit their target. And this has now become such a major problem for Vladimir Putin, to the point in time to where just 2 days ago, he admitted that yes, there clearly is a problem right now, and that they were banning the export of jet fuel and gasoline. And they were almost at the point to where they were going to be banning the export of diesel, but Russia still needs its money. And so they kept that kind of on for at least the moment. That leads us to today, the new Reuters article, which states that right now, Russia is having to look to India and Belarus for hundreds of thousands of tons of gasoline so they can bring that back into Russia. And I want to make sure that it's clear right now. Russia at this very moment still has their pumps running. They're still pulling oil from the ground all across Russia. The issue they have is that Ukrainians have taken out, or at least damaged, 40% of their refining capabilities across Russia. Obviously, mostly on the west side of Russia, though with time, I'm sure Ukrainian forces will be able to go after the refineries further and further away. And so they're still able to pump this stuff out and then bring that stuff to other countries who can then refine that stuff, and then they can buy their fuel or get their fuel from someone else, their gasoline. And it comes at a crucial time in which, if you've probably seen the videos online, you've seen there are some people in Russia either completely out of fuel. There's some people waiting in hours-long lines. Some people waiting, I think one of the videos showcased a 15-kilometer long line to get fuel. And it's causing tensions between Russians. There are some videos online, I'll show you some of them, not some of the worst ones, where people are physically fighting on the side of the roads, fighting at the pumps in order to get the fuel. Some people have now found ways to try to get around getting more fuel, such as cutting into their car and putting additional tanks so that when they're filling up their car, they're able to take in more fuel than what they actually should be, which then leads to people kind of literally punching each other in the gas line. And let's remember that at this very moment, for Vladimir Putin to come out and say there's a shortage and we're doing this and doing that, and then seeing this report from Reuters, means that this is bad. Russia is an energy superpower. They're one of the, if not the largest in the entire world. I know we could also say the United States is also doing that. Yes, we are pushing out way more fuel than we ever had. But, and this is the big but here, for Putin to turn around and say that they're banning these things, and also add in the fact that in certain areas they're prioritizing the military over it. This is a big indicator that Ukraine's strikes, these mid-range strikes, are working. And I do want to clarify something real quickly here. I'm not saying to you that Russia is fully running out of gasoline. They use, I think the number is 110,000 tons of fuel every single day. So 400,000 plus additional 50,000, I think it's getting to them by like Pakistan for like humanitarian aid, is not really like a giant dent. It's about 4 to 5 days. Keep in mind, it's summertime. People are using way more fuel and all that. but it's a really, really big indicator that what Ukraine is doing inside of Russia, going after those refineries, it is working and it's causing a major strain onto Russia. And let's for a second here, forget that Russia exists. Let's look into the occupied areas of Ukraine: Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and occupied Crimea. Ukrainians have been striking all the logistics in Crimea. We're talking about fuel depots. Another one hit yesterday. We're talking about bridges. We're talking about train connections, whether they be train bridges or different connections that are on the ground. There is something larger going on in occupied Crimea that I don't think anyone truly knows except for Ukraine right now. Like, I feel like we're at the very cusp of something major coming. What is it going to be? We'll find out soon. But in order to get to this point, Ukrainians had been going after the Russian military installations, whether it is most recently the manufacturers for launchers or chip manufacturers or you name it. Between that and oil depots and then logistics, Ukraine is coming up with a plan that we can't even fathom right now because there's so many little steps they've been doing in between. You know, you go back a few months and you remember Ukrainian forces going after air defense systems. They were knocking one out here, one there, one there, one there, one there, which then made Russia pull them back. That then allowed them or opened up the battlefield for them to strike really anything else that's there. And in some cases, like with the Flamingo missiles the other day, they were able to pretty much fly through Russia hundreds of kilometers with no one stopping them, which is insane. And so you look at these little steps, getting rid of air defense systems, Russian positions, control positions, checkpoints, then bridges, then train stations, then depots. Then you start looking at refineries and then ports. Something big is happening right now. And it's one of those to where you have to step back and look at the full picture of what Ukraine's been doing over the past few months. It is going to be, if all the indications are correct so far of what we're seeing, it is going to be an explosive month for Russia, who's going to be dealing with a lot of issues. And for Russia to now be pulling through 400 tons of gasoline every month from these other countries, we expect that number to increase, as Ukrainian forces even today struck an oil refinery. Zelensky put this over on Telegram, saying, quote, "For the second time, our sanctions in response to Russia's prolongation of war have reached the oil refinery in Ufta, one of Russia's largest producers of lubricants. The distance is more than 1,300 kilometers from the front lines." He also mentions another region in which he says our weapons reach a strategic facility of the Russians' military-industrial complex involved in developing and manufacturing components for missile weaponry that all the occupiers use to strike our cities and communities. The distance to that target is about 600 kilometers from the front lines, ending with, "Every day, our plan for imposing Ukrainian long-range sanctions is being implemented. This is an entirely just response to everything Russia is doing against us. Peace is needed, and that is exactly what Russia's leadership must realize. Russia must end its war, and Russia's leadership has every opportunity to do so. And I thank every Ukrainian warrior who ensures our long-range accuracy." He talks about our plan, his plan, on going after Russia. It's working. And if we remember that Russia has now pulled back the majority of its air defense systems to protect Moscow, that's yet another step in this plan, which allows these Ukrainian flamingos to fly, or long-range drones, or whatever, to be able to strike these targets unhindered, with really nothing getting in their ways except for Russians on the ground firing at said drones, hoping that whether they're portable air defense system can knock it down, or even sometimes literally just putting as much lead into the sky, hoping that that drone will come down before it hits whatever target it needs to go to. I just want to reiterate one very important thing here. Russia still has the upper hand in a few different things. Manpower, in which, yes, we're finding out that the average Russian man lasts 45 minutes on the front lines, which is really bad for Russia, but they have so many men, they're able to really push them into that meat grinder, not really caring. And then the other thing is their production of the Shahed drones and the way they can overpower Ukrainian air defense systems. I am still worried that we have yet to hear the response from Vladimir Putin or the Russian military in response to what Ukraine had did to the refineries inside the Moscow region, inside about 10 kilometers just south of Moscow. I personally think that any day now, I think I've said it was going to be today or the next few days, that Russia will be launching a night attack where we're looking at 1,500 plus air targets, drones, drone decoys, different kinds of Kinjal missiles, other kind of missiles into the capital or other areas. And I say this because they vowed retaliation. The Russian military vowed retaliation. And we haven't really truly seen a response for that yet, which makes me wonder or worry that Russia is doing everything in their power to prepare for this. Stockpile drones, stockpile missiles, stockpile the decoys, and then they would launch some kind of very, very massive night attack that could be happening soon. We just don't have an answer right now. That aside, as a reminder, we are fundraising for armored trucks for the front lines. To me, I think it's amazing. Yesterday, we gave you guys a quick little tour. Here's a little bit more of that tour.
That will also stop rounds coming from the inside. So if you look here, you'll see this is not a window, but it's a solid piece of steel, protecting the guy's head and neck, which is very important, because obviously your main veins runs in your neck, which means that if you protect that, you protect the life of the soldier. Also, if you look into the cabin here, you can see that on the passenger side, there's already also a steel plate of 5mm, which will help protect the passenger for the driver. The thing that's very difficult is we always heat radiators. The radiators are situated here at the back of the vehicle. If that radiator is jammed, this vehicle will overheat and this vehicle will be going nowhere, which makes it the ideal target for FPVs and drop drones. So this not only helps us for impact from the front, protecting the radiators, but this also helps us to make sure that this vehicle runs and take our soldiers from the front lines or to the front lines without any incident.
And so if you want to donate to that, we're getting closer and closer to getting to our goal. 37 people have donated so far. I think we're at like 2,800 euro. We need 1,100 euro or 11,000 euro. So if you want to donate, I'll put the link down below. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, turn on the notifications, and give this video a thumbs up. Stay safe.